So as Loz said, I'm new to the community department and also new to this as a subject, so please bear with me if you've got any questions that I can't help you out with, and I definitely can chase them up for you. I'm actually heading off to a meeting with the AFL after this to sort of start the working group that will be developing the national policy and documents for these child safe standards. So AFL Vic have put steps in place for the beginning of 2017, so those that haven't heard anything about the child safe standards, 1st of January 2017, it's expected that all organisations that work with children have child safe standard steps in place. So we've put something out to all of our affiliate clubs and leagues, Auskick centres, basically any program that runs that has something to do with children has to abide by the AFL Victoria standards we've put in place, with further development of national child safe policy currently happening, like I said, and we'll have more resources sent out in the coming months for that. So just like I said, the aim today, just to give you a brief understanding of what's happening. You might have heard about some of it in the news, particularly with the Royal Commission going on at the moment still. So good for you to have a brief understanding of it and how it affects you in your work. So in 2012, the change in requirements for all organisations that work with children came about because the Victorian Government began the inquiry into the handling of child abuse by religious and other non-government organisations. So as a result, the Betrayal of Trust report was released. It contained a number of recommendations to prevent child abuse from occurring in any organisation. So the Victorian Government is then committed to introducing these child safe standards for any organisation who works with children. That is just relevant to Victoria at the moment, but it's expected that it'll be national in the coming sort of months to years. So Victoria is leading the way in this. Other recommendations that also included out of that inquiry was a reportable conduct scheme and new criminal laws, which we'll also go over briefly later on. So the child safe standards, someone pocket dialing me, ensure that there's a minimum standard for any safety, for all safety, of kids in an organisation. And flexible and principle based as well, to make sure that organisations are able to tailor their approach to how best works for them. Obviously some working directly with children like we would be in Auskick or schools or clubs, and others working more in terms of putting programs in place for families that might come in contact with children. It is important to remember that each standard has to be understood and applied in the context of the cultural safety of Aboriginal children, cultural safety of children from a culturally or linguistically diverse background, and the safety of children with disability. And it is really important to keep that in mind when you're working with kids, because children and people from different backgrounds will understand and comprehend things around child abuse and child safety in a different manner depending on their background as well. So the child safe standards, so there is 7 standards that it was broken down into, and that makes up the requirements that each organisation needs to be able to adhere to be ready for those standards. So strategy 1 is to embed an organisational culture of child safety, included through effective leadership arrangements. So that's doing a review of what you have in place already, and also making sure that from the top down of any business or organisation that they are following the child safe standards and leading the way. So CEO of AFL Victoria as well as the AFL obviously will have to be on board and showing their support for this, so that everyone down to Auskick coordinators, local clubs are also following the way. So standard 2 is the child safe policy or statement of commitment to child safety. So you'll see that in a form of a policy or statement that each club, league, Auskick organisation will put in place that has to be communicated to their members about their commitment to child safety. So standard 3 is a code of conduct. So that might be something that might be relevant to you guys, whether you are working in a club or Auskick, that you might need to sign a code of conduct that clearly states the expectations of that staff member to their behaviour with children in that organisation. Standard 4 is around HR practices and the screening, supervision and training of staff, new staff and existing personnel. So that's where you're working with children checks comes into it, making sure everyone is compliant with working with children's checks, as well as the really important aspect of having your working with children check aligned to the organisation we're working with. So I'm not sure whether Dale or Lauren have mentioned that yet, but if you are doing work with AFL Victoria, but I'm not sure, Loz, are you sending them to you or Dale, or it's something probably to look at going forward?
Yeah, so they've had to basically give us a copy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what you also need to do is align your card, whether you've been across that yet or not. You can just log into the system and make sure you've got AFL Victoria as your one of your organisations. You can have as many organisations as you need to, and probably putting Lauren down next to AFL Victoria so that when it gets sent to us.
Jump on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's probably something we haven't said over the last couple of days. And if you do have a pen and notepad, we need you to do this tonight. So you log in, it's actually really easy, it sounds like a pain in the backside, but you just log into Working with Children Check online, just Google it, you'll find it. And what it does is once you've logged in, it asks you which organisations you work for, and you need to add AFL Victoria into that. And then it'll ask who your contact is there, and you just put my name down. If you have any questions about it, you all have my email address, just email me, but you can't work for AFL Victoria legally until that's done. So just Working with Children Check, log in.
You just go to change
Add
my
AFL
details
Victoria.
and you're just going to add a new organisation if you've already got one in there that's not AFL Vic. And yeah, like Loz said, just put Loz's name next to the organisation, because then reception obviously know who to pass that communication on to.
Probably take about 3 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely, if that.
Yep.
That's just an important part of it for us as an organisation to make sure, even though we may have seen your card, we don't know whether you're aligned or not to us, and that means that we get all communication around your card if something were to go awry in that sense. Standard 5 is just the processes for responding to and reporting suspected child abuse. Obviously having clear processes in place for if a child or another staff member were to suspect something happening, and that being communicated to all members so that people know who to go to mention if something they believe something might be happening. Standard 6, strategies to identify and reduce or remove risks of child abuse. So that's a risk management plan really, which a lot of organisations have in place already, but just making sure that child safety comes into that. And Standard 7, the strategies to promote participation and empowerment of children. So making sure all kids involved are aware of their rights, if they feel safe or unsafe, who they need to go to, and empowering them in the process. So just a quick touch on child abuse definition. So it is important that you're all aware of the definitions of child abuse, because while this Betrayal of Trust report and inquiry is in regards to children's safety within an organisation, it is also our responsibility as people who work with children to make sure that if we have any concerns about a child that we come in contact with around their safety at home or in any other setting, that we can report that to the appropriate people as well. So physical abuse, so obviously when a child suffers or is likely to suffer significant harm from a non-accidental injury inflicted by another person. Sexual abuse, when a person involves a child in sexual activity or deliberately puts the child in the presence of sexual behaviours that are exploitative or inappropriate to their age and development, and that includes grooming, obviously. Serious psychological or emotional abuse. So if a child is when harm is inflicted on a child through repeated rejection, isolation, threats of violence, to an extent where the behaviour of the child is disturbed or emotional development is at serious risk of being impaired, and serious neglect. So the continued failure to provide a child with basic necessities of life, food, shelter, hygiene. So in terms of the organisations that you might be working with, the child safe standards apply to all personnel in an organisation who work with children under the age of 18. So like I said before, that includes your CEOs, your boards of management, committee members, executive committees, employees, contractors, volunteers, any students that might be on placement in an organisation if they're over 18, and anyone coming in contact or working with children. So just as I mentioned before, the Reportable Conduct Scheme was introduced from the Commission of Children and Young People in 2017, and that allows for basically the Commission to look at organisations and how they're putting the child safe standards into practice, so they can monitor investigations or abuse or misconduct. They can share information with key organisations to improve child safety, inquire into the safety systems of an organisation engaged in child-related work, and then share the information as well so that they can get the best practices happening. As I mentioned earlier as well, the new criminal laws or changes to some of the criminal laws that are relevant as well. So the grooming offence targets communication with a child with the intent of committing sexual abuse. A failure to protect offence applies to people within an organisation who may have known of a risk of child abuse by someone and had the authority to reduce or remove the risk but failed to do so. Failure to disclose offence requires adults to report to police if they have reasonable belief that a sexual offence has been committed against a child, unless they've got a reasonable reason to not do so, such as putting yourself or the child at risk. And mandatory reporting also, depending if that's relevant to you in a professional sense. So teachers, principals, doctors, nurses, midwives and police do have a legal obligation to report to DHHS if in the course of their job they form a reasonable belief that a child has suffered or is likely to suffer harm. So more practically for you guys going into organisations, given that some of the work you might be doing will be once off, The child safety officer is something that we're asking all centres, clubs and leagues to put in place, but it's not always going to be obvious to you who that child safety officer is. So keeping in mind that if you come across someone's title as child safety officer, they're going to be your first point of contact for any issues or worries that you may have. But if not, always best to go to the highest person management at that organisation, or even back to the AFL Victoria management here, obviously. So having a child safety officer in place is an important part of ensuring children feel safe in an organisation. So yeah, like I said, we've told all clubs and leagues that they need to have that child safety officer in place. It needs to be communicated to all members so that they can be the initial point of contact for any reports, and important obviously for the children to know so that they can approach them if they don't feel safe. And yet, like I said, in the absence of a child safety officer, if you're unsure of who that might be, then just heading to the highest level management there at the time. Just a quick overview of the reporting procedure if you may be in an organisation and feel that something may have occurred that you're not quite sure about. So all organisations need to have this reporting process in place to make sure there's a consistent process followed through if there is a report of alleged child abuse made. So like I said, the report or worry of child abuse is made to the child safety officer or that highest level management around. And if that is of any sexual or physical abuse to a child, then that is then passed on to the police. The child safety officer then communicate the report to the relevant manager and detail a written report about who, what, when, where and why the incident is of concern. Senior management will then take it obviously to the police if necessary again, and then pass it on to the higher level league management or AFL Victoria management. If the alleged perpetrator were a staff member or volunteer, then they need to obviously be reassigned to other duties until that process is complete, and not take part in any other child-related work until the process is completed. And if that alleged perpetrator was to be a member of staff or the organisation, then there would be an investigation take place from an AFL Victoria perspective. So more relevant to you will be my final point for the day. Your responsibilities as part of AFL Victoria staff. So as a GDO, an AFL Victoria employee who works with children, you need to be across these points. So like Loz and I have just said, the working with children check is obviously a really important part, so making sure you jump on that one and align your working with children check to AFL Victoria. Ensuring all children are provided with a safe environment to participate in as well. Understanding and upholding all AFL Victoria child safe policies, so as more documents and policies do come out, then they'll be passed on to Lauren, who will be able to pass them on to you guys as well. And also just reporting any concerns in relation to child safety or breaches of policy, like I said, to your relevant AFL Victoria manager. So if it might be in an AUSKIC sense, then you'd mention it to Dale. If it's a school sense, you'd mention it to Lauren. Like I said, that highest level management that might be running that program at the time. Probably the other one that I haven't touched on yet that's important to remember, any photography of children. If you haven't been asked by the club, organisation or AFL Vic to take photos, then best not to take any photos at all. Obviously of yourself is fine, but any photos with kids in them, best not to be taken, and definitely not to be publishing them online unless you've been asked otherwise by AFL Vic to get some on the day and send them along. So like I said, the AFL in conjunction with the Australian Childhood Foundation at the moment is developing more resources, so as they come to hand we'll definitely send them out. Has anyone got any questions around any of that? Here's a very, very quick brief overview of it. And there is a lot going on around it in the media at the moment with the Royal Commission, but it's obviously from a more religious point of view, but a lot of other organisations have had to come up in front of the Royal Commission as well with a lot of questions being asked and processes being put in place, so we're going through that process at the moment in terms of putting more steps in place for the future. Anything else? Questions? Quick one.
Yeah, I'd just add to it, like everything Meg said is really important. Just make sure that if you're ever concerned, or even just like sometimes it's your gut instinct, if you ever think like something's not quite right here, make sure you say something, because the reason there's these Royal Commissions happening and it's all over the papers, if you ever read the paper, that's because people probably had a little feeling that something wasn't right and they just didn't say anything. So that's the reason all of this legislation's coming in, because people just didn't do anything about it. So as an organisation, we're really responsible. We have full responsibility, as do you as our employees, to report or to speak up if you don't feel like something's right, or if you see something that you know is not right.
Absolutely, and yeah, like obviously we know that you're going into places that might be a once, twice, 3 times, and that's all. If you are unsure, then always bring it back to myself or Loz or Dale, or, and we can talk through it and then discuss further with that organisation if you don't feel comfortable taking it to them directly.